In our previous encounter on our weekly motivation, we established and confirmed that learning never stops. Author of motivational books and life coach Ebenezer Mamabolo joins me now in studio to talk about how to learn. And this is the second edition of a series that we started last week. You can join us in this conversation. Our WhatsApp text line is 079 295 1212, 079 295 1212. Our SMS line is 47861. That's 47861. Start each SMS with the short code EFM, and each SMS is charged at R1.50. Also, this is how you can give us a call as we continue with this conversation. Mr. Mamabolo, good evening and welcome.
Good evening and thank you for having me.
Are you well?
I'm very well. How have you been?
I'm well. I noticed in preparation for tonight's discussion that we're obviously in September. September is Heritage Month in South Africa. And it's in Heritage Month that people obviously start showing how proud they are of the cultures, of their languages, of their traditional food, and all of that. There's always something to learn during this time.
Yes.
And on a continuous basis. Have you been maybe learning anything, particularly within the realm of our heritage?
Yes, I've been. You know, ever since the lockdown had started, I've been studying the history of Africa, where we as Africans come from, what are our cultures, and all of those things. Yeah, I've been definitely learning a lot about our cultures.
And I'm sure as we proceed with the series, someday you can share some of the lessons with us.
Yes, I'll definitely do that.
Right. We spoke about what one can do to learn effectively. And I think maybe let's just refresh our minds briefly to say, what exactly did you say in that particular regard? Because I remember very well that I said when one knows what to do, then it's important for us to set a separate day where we can then start talking about what actually stops you from doing that which you've just learned that you can do to learn effectively.
Yes. Yeah, you know, in the previous episode that we had, we said that, you know, we must not get to a point where we let our certification interfere with our education. And we established the fact that just because you and I might be advancing in our careers we are done with maybe our certification, that is not the end of the learning process. There is still more to learn that we need to learn. And I even shared a quote which said that the illiterate of this century will not be those who cannot read or write, but the illiterate of this century will be those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Now, in this series, what we are trying to do is to share what are some of the things that we need to learn that will help us to advance in our careers, that will help us to advance in our dreams and in the pursuit of our purpose, what we need to unlearn, and also what we need to relearn. And, you know, I'm reminded of the way I've been learning myself. You know, a lot of people tend to ask me, Mr. Mamabolo, why do you know so many subjects deeply? And I always tell them that I never let my worldview or the way I was raised and the worldview that I was given, I never let that interfere with my education, because what I know or what I was taught, perhaps maybe because I come from a religious background, I used to see the world only in the lens of a religious background. And if anything that was happening was not in relation to that particular religious worldview that I had, I would disqualify it. I would even despise it. But as I grew, I learned that no, in my learning, let me not let my religious background, let me not let any previous indoctrinations or misinformation end up interfering with my education. So in this series, we are talking about holistically educating and learning.
Let's now talk about what stops people from learning effectively.
There are three things that I've identified that stop us from learning. The first thing would be the beliefs that you and I have about learning. You know, where we are today, we've got some beliefs that, some of the beliefs we might have gotten them from our teachers, some of the beliefs we might have even gotten from our communities. The first belief that we have is that we tend to think that, you know what, I'm not smart enough or I'm not intelligent enough. And as I was busy studying neurology, one researcher talks about the fact that there is no fixed gene that would disqualify you and I from learning. There's no such a thing called as intelligence, and it's actually fixed, meaning that you and I cannot improve our brains, you and I cannot learn. But when we talk about neuroplasticity, it's where you and I, with the frequency of use, the way we will be using our brain, we end up changing the structure of our brain, meaning that you and I have got the potential to learn infinitely. Even if maybe in high school you were not performing well academically, you need to discover your mode of learning. Which way are you going to be learning effectively? Another one would be, sometimes we tend to tell ourselves that, these things are too complicated for my brain. I never did maybe these complicated studies or what.
Yeah.
When you've got that mindset or that mentality, you end up becoming your own limits. And I'm reminded of even when I was in high school. When we were in grade 8, we used to pass mathematics and we would take totals and get these top marks. But at one point, we had this teacher in our grade 9, and she had a horrible attitude. She told us of how insignificant we were, how complicated mathematics would be for us, how dumb and stupid we would be that we wouldn't even grasp what mathematics is about. And because of what she said, because of that attitude she instilled with us, we ended up hating mathematics. And sooner or later, after the first test, we started failing. Then we even started getting 10s, 15s. And we kept on hating mathematics because of that belief that the teacher had given us. But as we kept on growing, as we kept on advancing in our grades, meeting better teachers who instilled the love in us for that mathematics, we ended up even changing from failing mathematics to even passing mathematics. So make sure that don't let the beliefs that other people might share with you. Don't adopt beliefs that would become limits for you and your learning. Another one would be even the issue of I am a slow learner. There's no such a thing as a slow learner. If you can learn to play or to use your phone very fast, then it means that you can also learn any subject in the very same pace. You can learn whatever subject you want in whatever pace. The key is you need to learn what's the best way for you to learn. Don't disqualify yourself based on the fact that maybe you were not numerically gifted, or you were not taught by a holistic teacher who taught you how to solve mathematics. Don't disqualify yourself. There are techniques that you could use to learn. Another belief that we would have, these are the beliefs that we get from other people. You could even end up saying that, what, they said that I'm too stupid, then it means that my brain is broken. When you've got that belief, it prohibits you from even learning effectively. Another one would be, no one has ever passed or succeeded in this particular field. When we grow up, we heard of people, or we heard of subjects. Some would tell us that, no, you can't do physics. Physics is too difficult, or mathematics, or accounting, or whatever subject that you might come up with. So make sure, don't let anyone give you beliefs that would end up limiting you and your learning. The third option would be, now in our learning, we need to realize that learning is not only for gifted people. All of us are gifted with the capability to learn. All of us have got a brain that's continually evolving. How our brain evolves, it's our choice. I can intentionally choose to say that I am going to develop my brain in this area by studying this particular subject. I am going to develop my brain by doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there is no limit to how far you can go in your learning. You can learn as much as you want. Another one would be, there's nothing as you and I are not supposed to know this, or you and I are not supposed to this. There's no subject that it's only reserved for a specific kind of people. There's no subject that we say, no, this subject maybe it's only for the rich, or this subject is only for any subject that you desire. As long as you put in the effort, as long as you commit yourself to learning that particular subject, there is no limit to what you and I can learn.
There's a message here, and the message starts with laughing emojis on our WhatsApp line 079-295-1212. And I'm sharing this message because it talks exactly to what you've just said now about the effects of being told something and getting to a point where you believe that which you've been told about yourself and your capabilities, and how it then affects how you perform in learning any area of life.
Yes.
This message says, AB, Mets Wapara. I used to get 2 and 0s. Your thoughts?
I would say I disagree with that. It's up to your attitude. I remember, when I was I'm not sure of the grade, but there used to be a time when we would come back from school, my mother would sit us down and say, guys, she would call my sister and I and say, take out your books and let me see how you've been performing. And I remember this one time she took out all of our books and said, now let me see all of your books. Then we took out our books. Then my sister took out her math book, and she had failed some of the activities that she was given in class. Then my mother sat us down and said, my children, no, these things are not difficult. I'm going to teach you how do you learn these things. Then she said, no, go and fetch some stones outside, go and fetch some sticks. Then she started teaching us, how do we count, how do we multiply. And it was from then that I learned my mathematics, and I ended up falling in love with mathematics. So it does not matter what you were told. If you are now, I could ask you, what is 1 rand plus 1 rand? You would tell me that's 2 rand. If I asked you what's 2 rand plus 3 rand, you would tell me that's 5 rand. Now that means that math is not difficult, because you know that if I take one number and add it to another. Now the trick would be now, what other ways can you learn to your particular learning style? You could learn math. It does not matter if you had gotten 0. There's even this one lady I like very much. Her name, I just forgot her name, but she used to fail mathematics, and she felt mathematics so bad. So one day while she was studying mathematics, she got introduced to tutors. You know, when you're going to university and colleges, you get introduced to tutors. Now, because she had brilliant tutors, they taught her how to learn. And because she has been failing math in her high school and even in her first year in college. But after she met those particular people who taught her how to learn using techniques that would make her learn effectively, she ended up even getting a PhD in mathematics. She ended up even becoming a rocket scientist. Now, how could someone who has been failing mathematics, getting zeros, ended up becoming a rocket scientist? That means it's possible for you and I. There's no subject or there's no difficulty in mathematics. What you and I need to do is to change our attitude and the way we see mathematics.
And now we'll continue to really say that it's not just about particular subjects that
Yes.
are taught in formal schooling, and that it's really about tackling life and adulting, if one was to put it in that particular regard.
Yes.
I'm hoping that after the break we can talk about what one can and should learn, the areas that one should be really developing an interest in, because I had an interesting conversation today with the co-host of the Energy Drive, Rochelle.
Okay.
She was talking about how she feels it's really important for people, particularly at institutions of higher learning, to choose fields that they're passionate about, because when you learn about these things, it doesn't feel like it's actual work. It starts feeling like it's something that you really love, that you want to do, and you don't even feel like it's an assignment that I must do, and I must now think about how many marks I'm going to get and all of that. So I'm sure when you talk to us about the issues of what to learn and what one should really be developing an interest in, it will help with issues of what that listener was talking about, to say that maths is difficult.
Yes.
We are in the second part of the series that we started last week here on Motivation Wednesdays, as we talk about how to learn. You can join in the conversation. Our WhatsApp text line is 079-295-1212, 079-295-1212. Our SMS line is 47861. That's 47861. Start each SMS with the short code EFM, and each SMS is charged at R1.50. This is how you can give us a call as we continue with this conversation after the break.
Have your say. Call us now on 015-151-1058.
The time is 20 minutes past 8. This is Conversations on Energy FM 102.1 and Choice FM 101.1. We are in the middle of our weekly motivation with Ebenezer Mamabolo. We're talking about how to learn, and we had quite a heated, I must say, sort of submission before we went to the break, in the form of the example that was given about the attitude that it seems a lot of people have towards the subject, particularly of mathematics. And we had to keep reiterating to say the bigger picture here is how to learn in general as an individual. But something that really came from that message by John, Mr. Mamabolo, was the issue of saying that there's challenges of attitudes, there's challenges of shortcomings of people and so forth, particularly in the subject of mathematics, though we understand that we're just talking about how to really be a continuous learner of life, or a student of life. So John joins us on the line now, and we would like for him to really just expand further on what he said. John, good evening and welcome.
Hello, Rebecca and Lady. How are you?
Well, thank you, John. So why are you so in disagreement with what Mr. Mamabolo has said about learning maths as an example?
What I was trying to say was that in actual fact, an attitude to a certain thing. So now I'll put it in as in I had an attitude towards the math and accounting. So as time goes on, I realized that if I continue having this kind of attitude towards this certain subject, it's only a problem as time goes on in time. And remember, one attitude, the attitude towards a certain subject, but towards a certain teacher, the person that is the very same subject.
Okay.
So I decided, for me, what I get to this attitude, rather stay focused to get all of that attitude. I am good to know, and it's all of my pride to focus on my studies. But yeah, it helped me a lot. Eventually, I managed. And,
So a change of attitude helped you?
Yeah, a change of attitude helped me. And mind you, I left maths when I was going to grade 10, and I completed my grade 12 with accounting, but without maths.
Okay.
So, yes.
All right. Thank you so much, John, for getting in touch. What John just said now about the importance of an attitude, because now we're expanding the discussion, we want to really talk about what one should learn in their lifetime, because we're trying to cultivate a culture of students of life, right?
Yes.
Bearing that in mind, the issue of an attitude, you think of a subject like spirituality, you think of finances, you find that some people just say, I struggle with money, but I don't know if I'll ever really understand it.
Yes.
What should one be learning?
Like we had said, attitude is the root of it all. If you have a negative attitude and belief towards a particular field of study, it ends up becoming a limit for you learning. Now, I've discovered that there are some areas that we need to learn, and these are subjects that I have found that a lot of people have got problems because of the attitude that we have towards them. And an example number one would be history. When we are studying about our history, it tells us of who we are and where we come from. Now, irrespective of whatever beliefs you might have, irrespective of whatever religious background you might have, you need to know your history. When you can know, sometimes even these days, when you are very sick and you are going to consult, sometimes they ask you, what's the history of your family? Do you have this type of sickness that has been prevalent in your family? Now, because you and I would have studied our history and our family history, we would know that no, my grandma, back a few generations before, my father or my great-grandfather would have had this problem. Another area, we tend to shy away even from studying ourselves, we need to study ourselves, because when we study ourselves, we get to master ourselves. You get to a point where you know that no, I as Rebecca, I am capable of doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, I might have had attitudes towards this and that in my life, but now I'm going to change the attitude that I have. Another area would be even money. We tend to shy away from learning about money because we tend to think that the subject of money is only for the rich, or it's only for a specific kind of race. It does not matter who you are. It does not matter how much you have. Studying about money helps you and I to be able to provide ourselves. If you and I can manage our money well, it does. When you are studying money, it does not necessarily mean that you have to be an entrepreneur or study your own company, but you need to learn how do you manage your money effectively.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to just hold that thought. We've spoken about money, we've spoken about knowing ourselves, we've spoken about history. We have a call now. Let's talk to Emmanuel Ramavare from Chiswenda village. Good evening, Emmanuel, and welcome.
Evening, how are you, Rebecca?
Well, thank you, Emmanuel. You're in such a loud place. Please move a bit so we can be able to hear each other.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better. Yes, what would you like to say?
My point of view, I understand what he's talking about. My point of view is, we as students, we sometimes we have presupposition on our subjects or modules regarding maybe some people are saying you can't pass this module. This module is too hard. So we face it on a negative way of saying I can't pass it. Already I can't really do it. And on the other way, teachers, it might be high school or tertiary, most especially high school. You find that they are just teaching for the sake of supporting their families, sort of that. It's not like a calling. If you can look way back, teachers they do it from heart. They know how to bring good from a learner, to bring best from me, you see. You can, as a teacher, like a parent, you can see that there is a lack of something in this kid. Maybe I can't catch up in a fast way. So you can have a spare time for me or something like that.
Okay.
So, but you can see they're just doing it for money and then pass on.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
Okay. Emmanuel, thank you so much for getting in touch.
Thanks. Pleasure.
I wonder if the 2 points from Emmanuel and John particularly, because they talk about the issues of an attitude from the part of the student, but also to say that sometimes there isn't a lot of investment from the other party that is expected to teach.
Yes.
I'm noticing that we're running out of time, but I'm quite glad that this is a series. It's a continued basis, so we're going to continue learning.
Yes.
Because you had already touched on the 3 areas. I'm going to ask that we just really wrap up with the rest of the areas that we're remaining quite briefly. But as we do that, then you must also just wrap that particular issue around to say, in real life terms, the student will already know that is the individual who plays the role of the teacher, and how much should the student be expecting from the teacher, and how much should the student invest in the work. I don't know if we'll be able to do that quite briefly, but let's see how far we can go.
You know, I like what one of my teachers used to say to us. He would say to us that, you know, the lecturer or the examiner has already given you has given you the complete amount of marks. You and I are the ones to choose how much out of the grand total of the marks that we have been given. Now, in the same way, in our learning, you know, it does not matter whether the teacher has got a negative attitude towards you, towards the particular subject. It ends up becoming so make it your own personal responsibility to learn what you need to learn. Now, the benefit of today is that we've got lots of teachers around the world. If your teacher of a particular subject might have an attitude towards you, might have an attitude towards the subject, go online and find a teacher who would be teaching you something that they love. If you hate mechanics or whatever subject, go online, whether it's on the other online universities or even on our favorite university YouTube. You'll go there and you'll find someone who teaches a particular subject in a loving and grateful way. I remember my favorite learning facility, it's Khan Academy. No, that guy teaches my favorite subject, sciences and mathematics, very well. Now, when I found that I wasn't learning my subject well in class, I went to him and he was the one who taught me. So irrespective of how the teacher might have an attitude, whoever might have an attitude, whether they are teaching you or they're trying to make you learn a particular subject, make sure that don't let their attitude end up becoming your own attitude. Accept them, appreciate them as your teacher, appreciate them as your lecturer, or whatever they are to you, or the relationship that they have with you. But don't let the negative beliefs that they have towards that particular subject and towards you learning and improving your life get in the way of you learning.
Okay. So in our next edition of the series of How to Learn, you will tell us about what to unlearn, what to relearn. I keep giving you these points so that we make it as inclusive as possible, right? Because I think by now we've established that there's a lot to learn, but as you learn, there's a lot that must be shared off. You can't continue to really take it all in, because you spoke about biases earlier to say that there's certain things that one really has to do away with. But we'll get deeper into that, particularly next week. Kindly share with us our quote of the week.
The quote of the week comes from Henry David Thoreau, and he said that if one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live a life which he has imagined, he will meet with success at unexpected and uncommon hours.
One question, a comment actually. It also says here, he's telling the truth. I like his passion. I once taught maths at UNISA, and my student got a distinction at the end of the year. It depends on who's teaching it. This math subject, you can talk about it alone.
Yes.
Even if you can talk about it alone. Maybe we'll consider it someday. Share your contact details with us, please.
My contact details, when you are booking me as a coach and as a speaker, contact me on 071-639-7807. And for following me on all of the social medias, just search for Ebenezer Mamabolo.
Mr. Mamabolo, life coach and author of motivational books. Our next appointment is next week. Thank you for talking to me tonight.
It's always a pleasure.
That is our time on Conversations. Coming up next is Matumo Manaka. A big thank you goes to the show's content producer, Mamimbo Rashwa, our technical producer, Emmanuel Kwenda, and to you for always listening and interacting with us. I am Rebecca Phala. Enjoy the rest of your evening and stay safe.